Today's daf Bezras Hashem is Masechta Baba Kamma daf Pei Aleph 81. We're going to start from Pei Amid Beis by just when the lines get a little bit wide. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the Gemara begins. We're in the middle of this Agadah to Gemara, and the Gemara says like this: Amar Rabba Acha ba Papa, Mishum Rab Abba ba Papa, Mishum Rab Ada ba Papa. I guess a bunch of brothers are saying over something. Acha ba Papa said in the name of his brother. Abba ba Papa said in the name of his brother. Ada ba Papa. But Amrila and others say the version is like this. Amar Rab Abba ba Papa, Mishum Rab Achia ba Papa, Mishum Rab Abba Acha ba Papa. But Amrila and others say Amar Rab Abba ba Papa, Mishum Rab Acha ba Papa, Mishum Rab Chanina ba Papa. Anyway, the kids of the Papa family said the following three things. Masriyan, one is allowed to blow the shofar on Shabbos, al chikuch b'Shabbos. If there's boils, if a disease breaks out on Shabbos called chikuch, which is boils, dry boils on the skin, so one is allowed to daven very strongly and bring the shofar out on Shabbos, even though it's not in the spirit of the Shabbos. Then they also said a ethical teaching, a door that just closed, it's not easy to make it come back open. In other words, if a person's luck runs out, it's hard to turn it around. Once that door closed, it's hard to make it come back the way it was. If someone purchases a house in Israel, and let's say the only opportunity is to write the contract on Shabbos, you're allowed to write the contract to buy the property in Israel, even on Shabbos. So the Gemara is going to deal with these three things. Meisvei, the Gemara asks the question, it says in the Brisa, you told me that boils is an emergency, and you start bringing out the shofar even on Shabbos. But the Brisa says, Masechta Tanas, if there are other mishaps and big events that happen to the community, so all these different types of things that happen, they would not blow the shofar, they would daven. So we see that chikuch, which is one of those things mentioned, locusts, is other things mentioned, and snakes and scorpions coming, attacking. On Shabbos, we won't blow the shofar, but we would daven. So you just told me that chikuch is such an emergency that you would even blow the shofar on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, like kasha, it depends. Kan balach, kan bayavish. The dry boils is an emergency, and you would blow the shofar on Shabbos. Balach, but if it has moisture in it and it's a little pussy, then it's not such an emergency. You would just daven, but not blow the shofar. Rabbi Shua Levi proved it, that the worst type of shin was shchin shehevi HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Mitzrayim, the makkah shchin that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought on the Egyptians, lach mi bechutz. It looked like it was moist on the outside, the yavish mi befnim, but on the inside it was dried out. So it was probably very painful and dangerous. Shenema, the pasuk says, "Vahi shchin aba ba'us pereach ba'adam o ba'behema." The shchin was bubbled and blowing up in the people so Rashi explains, as it blowed up on the outside it looked like it had pus, but on the inside it was dry. So that clarifies the first statement that these Papa families mention. Videlis hanenelis loy b'meriti patach, a closed door, it's not going to quickly open up. Mahi, what does that mean? Mar zutra oma smicha. Remember, what Zurcha says, it refers to smicha, when you have the opportunity to get smicha, to become a real rabbi, and once somehow the door closed and the opportunity was lost, it's very hard to reopen that opportunity. But Ravashi explained that it's not just by smicha. The statement is kol hamarian loy. If some bad things befall a person, loy b'meheri mitivan loy. It's not quickly that it's going to turn around good, because you shouldn't expect that overnight things turn around. It takes time to stabilize. Rabbi Difta says never. It doesn't come back good. Once you're sailing away, and then all of a sudden things turned in the other direction. It'll never come back the way it was. That's Ravacha Badifka. But the Gemara says it's not true. He was talking about a personal experience. But the general experience is that yes, if the luck changes, it can change back to the way it was, although it'll take some time. And with prayer and Masim Tovim, you could even enhance your luck. So we're not so concerned about this statement that the door that closed, it's not going to easily open up. Yes, it could easily open up, depending on your commitment to davening and Masim Tovim. Someone purchases a house in Israel. One is permitted to write the contract even on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, you're allowed to write a contract on Shabbos? I mean, how could you write a contract on Shabbos? It's deraisa. You're writing on Shabbos. Rav explained, you're allowed to tell a goy to write the contract, and you sign it, or he signs it on your behalf. So that's the same thing over here. You tell a goy, and he does it. Even though telling a guy to do a malach on Shabbos is an Issa D'Rabbanan, Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael like goes Rebbe Rabbanan, because of the settlement of Eretz Yisrael, which is so important, they suspended the Rabbanan suspended the Issa of telling a guy to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yonasan. Shmuel bar Nachmani said in the name of Rab Yonasan, Halakeach Ir Eretz Yisrael. If someone purchases a city in Israel, I don't know how you purchase a city, but let's say there were a lot of bombed out cities which were available for sale after the Jews took over Israel. So if someone purchased a whole city, he has to buy also highways and pathways to lead to the city from its four sides. Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, again, because for the settlement of Israel, we want that a lot of land should be available for people to use, and the people won't use a city if you can't get to it. So we force the owner to purchase all methods to get to the city in a very easy way, even if it means he has to buy a highway on each of its four sides. Tana Rabbanan, we're talking about Israel and how the settlement of Israel came about. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Asora Tanoin Hisni Yeshua. Yeshua, in order to make that there should not be arguments amongst the Shvatim, he took out 10 conditions, 10, like Bill of Rights, conditions that everybody must adhere to when Yeshua conquered Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara explains. We go now to Daf Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. Sheyu Marim B'Charoshim. There's a right that you're allowed to take your animal and graze them in the forest. And the owner of the forest, he has so much land there, should not be upset about that. Even though they're grazing from his property, he doesn't really lose much. So therefore, that's one of the conditions that Yeshua allowed people to do. Umalaktim eitzim b'stoisehem, and you're allowed to collect wood from the fields belonging to your friend. Umalaktim asavim b'chol mokem. You're allowed to take grass for your animal food in any place, not just in the fields, but let's say in the front yard of a person's house. You're allowed to collect that to give it to your animal, chutz mitilton, except special grass that grows next to fenugreek, as Rashi calls it fenugreek, because grass near fenugreek helps the fenugreek. So we don't want anybody to pull out this beneficial grass. So therefore, it was that when someone's growing fenugreek, you're not allowed to take the grass from that place. The koit minatiyas b'chol makom, one is allowed to cut off a little branch from a tree in all areas in Israel. Chutz migroifis shozayis, and all trees except from the bottom of a olive tree. Somehow there's little branches growing out on the bottom of the olive tree, and that will somehow cause a damage to the olive tree, so you're not allowed to cut a branch from there. We'll see more about that in the Gemara. And let's say someone in his property all of a sudden has a natural water spring. It came out for the first time, he just discovered it. So that's it, it belongs to everybody. B'nei ha'ir, the people of his city, are allowed to use that water free of charge. Umachakim b'yama shel Tiberia. And one of the conditions that Yeshua said is that in the Kinneret, everybody has a right to fish, but you have a right to fish, spread your nets, see what you come up with. But don't put stokes into the ground of the water of the Kinneret, because that, and I don't know, they used to put up stokes like in the Kinneret, and that was a way to fish, but that's not a good way to fish in the Kinneret, because that is a block from ships from getting through. So therefore, you're not allowed to fish that way. Regular net you can fish with. Then the one of the things he said, v'nifnen la'choyrei hagada, v'alfila basada malei karka. One is allowed to defecate himself behind the fence of somebody's property, even if the guy is growing saffron, something smells good, and somehow the bad odor of defecating himself will mix with that odor of the saffron, could ruin it. But because of kavod habriyos, a person needs to use the bathroom, they allowed him to do it in a private way behind the fence of somebody's property. Umahalchin, and one is allowed to go into somebody's property. B'shvili reshus, if the guy has like a shortcut, a little pathway through his property, you're allowed to use it until the second rains come down, where he's already planted, and if you walk on his property, you're damaging his crops. So then, up until that time, which is the 17th of Mar Cheshvan, up until that time, you're allowed to walk on somebody's property, and you don't have to ask his permission. Let's say you're walking in the street, and there's protrusions in the ground because of it was a muddy street or something like that. And it's difficult to walk in the street itself because they didn't have paved roads then. Because of the protrusions coming out from the street, you're allowed to go onto somebody's front lawn just to go around the protrusions. If someone got lost amongst vineyards and he's nervous how to get out, he could cut the vines of the vineyard to find a way to go out this way or go down into the vineyard further. And there's no bal tashchis over there, destroying somebody's vineyard, because this is a situation where a person is lost, and if you cause him to go round and round to figure his way out of that maze, that corn maze, so to speak, he'll never get out. So therefore, for this kind of situation, they allowed the person to use his knife or scissors and cut his way out. And somebody who died anywhere, automatically, even if someone died on your property, that place, it belongs to the dead body, and he could be buried there even if it's not a cemetery. And even if it's a private property, it belongs to that person that died there. So now we're going to explain all the different things that we learned previously. First thing we learned, they allowed you to shepherd your sheep into somebody else's private forest. They didn't say that you're allowed to shepherd elabadaka if you're using small animals, bagasa in a thick forest. Badaka, if you have small animals, badaka in a small forest, or bagasa, or big animals like an ox or a bull in a thick forest, we don't allow you to shepherd. The koshkein gasa badaka, even a big animal, certainly a big animal in a small forest, in a thin forest, the law, you're not allowed to do that. The reason is because there's certain animals that could easily destroy a forest, so it has to be appropriate size. That appropriate size forest for the appropriate animal that you have, so to allow you to shepherd that animal into that forest. So basically, it has to be a small forest or a thinly dense, thinly populated forest for a small animal like a sheep or a goat. If you're using a big animal, you have to have a thicker forest. And you're allowed to collect wood from somebody else's field. What are you stealing somebody's wood? It was only said types of thorn bushes, which is people. You could walk into my property, take my thorn bushes, branches that fell off. I'm not makbid. I'm not concerned if you take it. Al-Basharites and regular firewood, you're not allowed to steal somebody else's firewood in somebody else's property. Even if you're using those hizmi and higi, only if it's still connected to the ground. If you find that it's already disconnected from the ground, so the owner probably cut it and he wants to keep it, you're not allowed to take it. Even if you found it connected to the ground, this hizmi and higi, only if it's moist, it's wet. If it's dried out, which makes it perfect for firewood, you're not allowed to take it out. And in all these cases where we allowed you to go into somebody else's property, don't ask him questions, take out his hismi and higi, his thorn bushes, just make sure you don't pull out the roots, because when you're pulling out the roots, you could damage some of his crop and it won't grow back, this hismi and higi. Maybe he wants it still. You're allowed to pick up grass. You're allowed to collect grass from anybody's property. Grass, just pick it up. Chutz mistay tilton. If the guy is growing the fenugreek, you're not allowed to take the grass to give it to your animal. So we see that grass is beneficial for fenugreek, which is why we do not allow you to take the grass from his property. Says the Gemara, Lamemra, will you say the tilton malalu asavan that for fenugreek it's beneficial to have it grown near grass? Reminu, I'll ask you a question. Tilton also in mini asavim in mechayvin oisel in Masechta Climb, if it says a guy has fenugreek and right up near it he has grass, we don't, get on his case. Oh, it's Klayim, looks like Klayim, remove the grass from near the fenugreek, because he's going to do it anyway, because grass near fenugreek is not beneficial. Actually, it's damaging. So he's going to do it anyway. So let him be, and you watch, and he's going to pull the grass out himself. So we see from the Mishnah in Klayim that grass near fenugreek is not beneficial. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Yirmi expand. Loy kasha, it's not difficult. Kan lezera, kan lezirim. If you're planting the tiltum, the fenugreek to use just for the seeds, then it's not beneficial to have it near grass. Kan lezirin, but if you're having it to use the stalks, so then it is beneficial to have it near grass. So lezera, the Mishnah Climb is talking about you planted it for seeds. Kashalu asavan. It's not beneficial to have grass near it. The matkashalate weakens the power of the seeds. The reason, if you're just having it for the stalks, mala, then it's good to have grass. The chikaima bein asava mirkava. When it's grown near grass, it seems to be more straight. And so if that's your purpose, is to have a straight stalk of tilton for whatever you plan on using it for, maybe you plan on using it to create something, a product out of it, but not to eat or use it for seeds. So then it's better to have it growing next to grass. If one, I can tell you, kan la'odam, kan la'behema, right? It depends. If you're using for human consumption, then having fenugreek near grass is no good. Kan lebehema, but that we're saying fenugreek near grass, our Mishnah is fenugreek near grass. Our brisa is beneficial, is because you're using the fenugreek as animal food. To kaven the behema who desire, since you're using it as animal food, asoma nami beboyla, then the animals need grass near it, because I guess it helps digest the fenugreek. So you want the grass to be near it, because I guess fenugreek is not something that you eat. It's like a spice or something like that. So, or something, you can't eat too much of it. So if you're growing it for animal food, you want it to supplement it with grass nearby. How would I know if a person's growing fenugreek for human consumption or for animal consumption? Rapapa, you look the way it's set up. Sha'are mishare, if it's organized in nice rows, right? It's organized in nice rows, so then it's for la'adam. I'm sorry, it's for human consumption. Sha'are mishare, but if it's not used in nice rows, the behema, the person is using it as animal food. The kite minatia, person's allowed to cut off a branch, b'chol mokim, in any place. Now, why would people cut off branches? So Rashi explains in the beginning of the page, a person cuts off a branch from somebody else's tree because he wants to make a new tree, or he wants to graft his tree. So the owner of the tree shouldn't be such a makbid guy and say, oh, you can't touch any of my branches of my trees. It's like, a slight request from somebody who needs it. Chutz migroifis shelzayis, from the little branches that are on the bottom of an olive tree, don't take it. Perish Rav Abrayis, Mishum Zakin Echad, they explain, Tamchan or Abrayis said over in the name of one elder, that means bezayis, in an olive tree, mikabeya. I guess it has to be an egg height off the ground, and then you can take the branch. Somehow near an olive tree, some branches come out of the bottom of the olive tree. You have to go up a height of an egg, and then you can take that branch from the olive tree. Bakanim uvakanim mina pakak lamala. If you're taking from the reeds or from the vine, you have to take from the knot and above. Ushar, I guess you have to see a picture. But ushar kali in lanais, but other trees, if you want to take a branch, min ubay shel ilam, v'loim min chudai shel ilam. Ubay shel ilam, it means, Rashi says, from the soft and thinly, densely populated part of the tree, from those branches, but not from the sharp part, from the big ones, from the big branch. You can't cut off a big branch because that is like a big tree. So you can't just bring your electric saw and start cutting off a big branch of something, a twig or something like that. Minachadash, you can take only from new branches, saying noisa paris, that never grew fruit on them. You can't take somebody's old branch, shu oisa paris, if that branch was already producing fruit. And you can take a branch from somebody's tree, that the sun never faces that branch. So therefore, that branch is not going to do anything. It's not going to produce. We go to Amid Beis. And not a place that it sees the sun around it from the outside, because that's the main part of the tree. Shenema, because the sun causes the fruit to become ripe, and it sweetens the fruit. So you can't take those prized branches off somebody else's tree. Shenema mimeget tavoy shamesh. The sweetness of the produce of a tree comes from the sun. Umayin hayotzim in chila. One of the conditions, one of the things that Yeshua said. Umayin hayotzim in chila. Umayin hayotzim in chila. If somebody's spring, somebody who's digging in their backyard and they have a water spring, then the people of the city are allowed to use it, because you're lucky enough to have a water well in your backyard. It belongs to the city. Rabba Bar Huna said, anybody who wants water has a right to take the water, but he has to pay for it. Allah is not like him, and therefore, if he takes water from that well, that's it. You don't have to pay for it. A lot of fish in the Kinneret Sea. Don't put a spoke there into the ground of the and that will be a protrusion that stops the ship passage through the Kinneret. You're allowed to use certain types of nets, and everybody has a right to fish in the Kinneret, although it belongs to Shevet Naphtali. But Rabbanan, the Brisa taught, when the Jews entered Israel, even without Yeshua, they made a condition with each other. Nobody's allowed to spread a certain type of trap that blocks shipway passage in the Kinneret. You're allowed to use regular nets that don't hamper ships from traveling through the Kinneret. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, the Kinneret Sea came under the Shevet Naphtali. Not only did he own the Kinneret, in the south, he took a large piece of property in the south. Probably it belonged to another Shevet, but that edge in the south was gifted over to Shevet Naphtali so that he can have a place to put his nets there. The Kaim Ashnemer, this upholds the pasuk that says that Naphtali got Yam, the Kinneret Sea, Vidarim, and a piece of land in the south. Yerashi inherited it. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa, Shimon ben Elazar, the Tulushin Shebaharim. If you find Tulushim, here we're talking about over here that you find everything, something let's say something disconnected from the ground, but it's on top of a mountain. So then the Ches kol hashvatim hein oimdim. Then every person from every shevet can take it. But if it's connected already to the ground, right? So maybe that shevet planted it there. The cheskes oishe shevet, it belongs to the property of that shevet. Ve'ein lecha kol shevet v'shevet Yisrael. There was not one shevet she'ein loy that did not have a wide, varied topography. Every shevet, when they divided Israel, there was never, every shevet did not have, wasn't missing a har, a mountain, a shvela, a valley, a negev, dry climate, a valley where fields are. Shenema, God promised every shevet is going to have like a mini world, basically. He's not just going to have one type of climate in his property in Israel, but he's going to have his part in Israel is going to be broken down into different types of topography. Where he'll have a little bit of Miami, and he could also have the Swiss Alps. And this Israel. Israel is a little bit of everything, but every shevet had something like that. And that's the way the Canaanim and the Prizim and the Moirim set up divide up their land, who lived there prior to the Jews coming in. Each nation, Canaani, Prizi, also divided up their mini countries within Israel to include that every nation should have a varied climate and a varied topography. Now we learned in the Mishnah that you're allowed to use the restroom, you're allowed to defecate behind the fence. Even if the property behind the fence belonging to somebody, he's trying to grow perfume there, you're allowed, and the odors are not good for growing the saffron there, but covered abrias, you need to use the restroom, you're allowed to use it there. Amar Abacha Bar Yankov, loy nitzurcha, even if you're not making a foul odor, but still, you're allowed to take a rock off somebody's fence, dislodge a rock, and take it, and use it to wipe yourself. You're allowed to remove the rock even on Shabbos. Moving the rock on Shabbos is muktzah, but suspended for kavod abrias. So for hygiene reasons, we suspend the isser, the prohibition of muktzah. Says the Gemara, Marzutra Chaside Shakel Umahade. Marzutra Chaside took a stone on Shabbos and then would return it. Wow, he took it on Shabbos and returned it after Shabbos. And he told his intendant, I took a stone from somebody on Shabbos, Zil, take another stone, take it back to that fence, and shirke, and plaster it into the fence and cement it in so I can return what I took. Even though technically, once you used it for restroom reasons, you wouldn't have to return it, but that's why he's called Marzutra Chasida. The Chassid, he did above and beyond what the law required him to do. So the Gemara continues. Mahalchem b'shvili reshus, you're allowed to take a shortcut, let's say through somebody's property, through a pathway, until the second rains come down. Amar Papa said, in Bavel, the ones that I have, not even prior to the second rains coming down, the fact that there was dew, it was exposed to dew overnight, so that's very good for the crops that I planted. So trampling over them would damage them. So Rav Papa qualified this. You don't always have to wait till the second rains come down, till let's say the 17th of Mar Cheshvan. Even prior to that, it could sometimes be damaging, cutting through somebody's yard if what's nourishing the crops that he planted was dew. Again, in the summertime and in the late spring, summertime, after everything has been harvested, you're allowed to use somebody's private property as a shortcut. That's fine because he's not planting there. It's only after he began planting and the second rains, or even sometimes prior to the second rains, you're not allowed to use his property as a shortcut. Let's say you're going on the road, on the regular Rishus Rabim, and there's protrusions, because it was muddy there and you're tripping all over the place. So Masalkin L'Tzidei Drachim, you're allowed to, go a lift off to the side of the road to somebody's front yard, but now you say this Hadrachim because of the protrusions that are coming out of the regular street. Says the Gemara, Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda v'shakli v'azal b'ureche. Shmuel and Rabbi Yehuda were going on the road. Haba mistalik Shmuel, let's see the adrachim. Shmuel started walking on the side of the road because it was uncomfortable to walk on the main street. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda tanoin shisn Yeshua afilu b'Bavel. This was in Bavel. Did these conditions apply to Bavel as well? Amalei shani yoyma afilu b'chutz la'aretz. He said that no, even in chutz la'aretz this applies. So it wasn't just these conditions. It's wherever a lot of Jewish life is, we have to learn to live with each other and not be so makbid on each other. So let's say the street is being repaved, allow people to walk on your front lawn a little bit, just temporarily. Same thing, same idea over here. Says the Gemara, Rabbi and Rachia were walking in the road. So they started walking on other people's property a little bit to get around the protrusions of the road. Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa was in front of them, and he didn't want to go into anybody else's property, so he was jumping around the middle of the street trying to avoid the protrusion, walking very funny. Rabbi was angry at Rabbi because this shows that Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa is acting with too much frumkeit, and that's when you act with too much frumkeit, it's balgaividik. Who is it that's showing that he's such a great person in front of us, showing too much frumkeit? Amalei Rabbi Chia said, Shema Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa Talmidihu. Rabbi Chia said, it's my student Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa. And everything that he does is L'Shem Shemayim. When they reached Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa, they saw it. So it was actually Yehuda ben Kenoisa who did not want to go onto the sides, front yards of people's property. He insisted on being on the main street, despite how difficult it was to walk. So Rebbe, I think, said to Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa, Yehuda ben Kenoisa, if you were not the great Rabbi Yehuda ben Kenoisa, I would have cut your feet off, basically. It's like an expression that would have put you in chayrim. Because if Yeshua gave permission for people to walk on when the roads are very difficult to walk on, you can just go off to the side road. You shouldn't show yourself to be more chumradik. People learn from you. So therefore, but Yehuda ben Kenoisa, people know you and they're not going to learn so much from you because the condition is, Yeshua said, that when it's difficult to walk on the main street, you're allowed to just veer off onto the side of the road, even though you're walking on somebody's personal property. One more thing, and then we'll stop. A guy who's, let's say, on a perch, and he sees what's going down, and he sees his friend lost amongst the vineyards, and he could just, in emergency, come down, cut through the vineyards, and damage it till he reaches his friend to guide him to go to the city or to get onto the right road. Even he himself, if you yourself are lost, then you're allowed to just break your way through the vineyards and just maybe damage it a little bit so that you can find your way into the road. So what's this? Even if you yourself are lost, certainly if you can help somebody else, certainly if I'm lost myself, I can cut through the vineyard and to try to find my way out. So the Gemara says, Mahu, the same I would have thought. When you're coming to save your friend, you from above on the perch saw what you're going to cut, and therefore we allowed you to cut because you're going to do it in an efficient manner, and you're not going to just haphazardly cut things that don't need to be cut. You know which way you're going to help your friend get out of this maze. But you yourself, if you don't know where you're going, we wouldn't allow you to cut through. We're going to try to say, retrace your steps, go all the way around, just figure it out on your own. Kamash malam, that we allow you yourself to cut through and destroy the vineyards to find your way out. Says the Gemara, is this to help somebody who is lost? You need a takana of Yeshua that people are allowed to damage vineyards to help somebody that's lost? Hadaraisu, isn't that Minatorah that you're supposed to help somebody who's lost? Tanya, We learned in the Brisa, you're supposed to return people's lost items. Hashavas gufoy minayin. How do you know that if a person is lost, that you're supposed to help him find himself, find his way back? Talmud loina v'hashe voisei. You have to return him himself. So how do you explain that Yeshua needed to say, oh, people are allowed to help each other find their way back if they are lost? And says the Gemara, yes, the Raisa who decoy be mitzre. Mina Torah, you help somebody back by helping him go around in the long way to find his way back. That's Mina Torah. Also, who? So Yeshua said, "Takin the mafaseg v'oilam mafaseg v'yared." That you to help him to find his way, you're allowed to cut through the vineyards, even you're destroying vineyards, just to help him get back to himself, get back to the road that he wants to be on in the shortest amount of time. So we're going to finish off tomorrow with a new topic called Mace Mitzvah.